For this presentation, we're going to talk all about consideration fees, blanket licenses, and sync fees. These are basically three forms of upfront payments that you can earn as a TV film composer when you work directly with music libraries. Okay, there's a lot of confusion about these, and I know that especially if you're just getting started in this business or you're about ready to start shopping to libraries, you're going to need to know what these things really mean, where do they come from, and how do you sort of navigate them as you're being offered various forms of contracts and structured deals when you partner with a music library. So this is a presentation that will hopefully clear up any of that confusion for you guys, okay? So let's start out with some definitions here. What are consideration fees? They are the one-time fee paid by some, not all, exclusive libraries to distribute a specific set of your tracks. Okay, so some people think, is it like an advance and I have to pay it back? No, it's not an advance. It's not something you're going to have to pay back when you earn royalties or anything like that. It is an upfront fee that you get for specific tracks that you send to a library. So unlike a record deal where they're going to give you advance and say, all right, you owe us 5 albums and you can't make music with any other distributors or any other labels for that time. That's not what's happening with music libraries. If they do tell you that you can't work with other music libraries, watch out, because that is not how this industry runs. You are a 100% freelancer. You can work with multiple exclusive libraries as long as you're obviously not sending the same music to all those different companies, okay? And basically what libraries are doing is they're paying this to exchange value for value to you, the composer and producer. So what's the value? Well, when you add music to their catalog, that enhances the value of the music that they can offer, the catalog that they have for their clients, whether it's TV clients, commercials, video games, trailers, movies, whatever it is. Your music is enhancing the value of their catalog. So what they're going to do is exchange some value back to you by giving you some money up front for distributing your tracks exclusively. Now, this is only in exclusive library land. I've never heard of a non-exclusive library ever paying upfront consideration fees for any tracks. Okay, the deal with non-exclusives is because you can submit to them and any other non-exclusive opportunity, or keep it on, iTunes or Spotify or wherever you want to do it. And so because you have all that freedom, they don't give you any sort of consideration fee, because you're not exclusively giving them this valuable piece of content, this valuable asset, which is your album or your set of 6 tracks or whatever it is that you're sending to them. Okay, so with exclusive libraries, you are exclusively telling them, yes, only you can shop these musics, TV shows, movies, and commercials. Some of them will also not want you to have your music on Spotify or on iTunes or even on social media. Some of them will have a problem with that. If your tracks are out there in a public place, you need to let them know that day one. And if they need you to take them down, you might have to decide whether or not you do want to keep them, in your distributed networks where they are now, or if you feel like they'd be better off with this library getting shot for TV shows, movies, and commercials for those placements. Okay. They're usually paid per track. So if you had 10 tracks, you would get 10 consideration fees. Sometimes they'll give you a full album, but for the most part, they're going to say, well, however many tracks we accept from you and we're a thumbs up on, that's how many consideration fees we're going to give you. And usually they lump all those together into one check or one direct deposit, however they're going to send you that, okay? And what do they range from? Well, they can be on the low side, $50. They can even be 25. I've heard of some libraries even getting away with a really small amount like that, to $1,000, $1,500, or even more. It just all depends on the value that you're bringing to them, how unique your tracks are, what their business model is. Some libraries do like to pay a lot for music that they get from composers because they want to keep attracting the really high quality composers and producers. They don't want to just get the sort of low quality stuff that you could get from a royalty free site. So they want to make sure that they really reward those really high quality producers and composers that keep giving them high quality music to get the placements, right? It keeps them in business when they have this high quality music. So some of them, their business models are be very generous with those upfront consideration fees. Others, not so much. They have a different business model, okay? Blanket fees. Let's talk about what are blanket fees, okay? They are basically the lump sum fee paid by a library's client to that library. So this is not to you, okay? This is a library charging one of their, let's say a reality TV show producer, charging them one-time lump sum fee for the use of all of their catalog, or maybe just a portion of their catalog's tracks, okay? So this would be something where, let's say, usually reality TV shows work well with this kind of model because they are producing tons and tons of content. They have all these episodes they need to do. And if you watch a reality TV show, there's always background music going on. Like every 30 seconds or a minute, there's a new track, or, maybe a home and garden TV show or a cooking competition show. Listen to any of those kind of TV shows where it's sort of reality competition based. And there's a lot of music. I mean, there's 50, 100 plus cues in each episode. So the client who's producing this reality show doesn't want to have to go individually negotiate every single one of those placements, right? To do 50 per episode, it'd just be a nightmare to go back and forth on all that stuff. So what they would rather do is just pay one lump sum, which can be really hefty and really nice, and then just get access to use sometimes the entire catalog of the library, any track that's out there, or sometimes the library will split off. Here's what we make available for our blanket license clients. You can have all the tracks over here on this part of our website, but this stuff is only for sync fees, and we'll talk about that next, okay? So that's basically one business model that a library will do. It'll basically cut down on the paperwork and the back and forth. It makes it actually better for the client so they don't have to go back and forth every time they need to use a piece of music. And it ends up usually resulting in a larger number of placements, because there's no more friction between getting a track and placing it in a TV show, because now the client, the reality TV show producer, has access to the catalog, and they can just download whatever track they want directly. Back in the day, they used to send these out on CDs, DVDs, sometimes external hard drives. The libraries would send their catalogs to their clients so they can like literally pull the files from the CDs or from the external hard drive. These days, it's all pretty much going on online. They can just directly download whatever the files they need, alt mixes, stems, any of that kind of stuff, right? They can do all that stuff all online. And these can be structured by a monthly blanket agreement. It could be a quarter, so every 3 months, biannually, every 6 months, or even annually. And sometimes I've seen them that last even longer than that. But usually you're going to see probably annually, biannually or annually is probably what you're going to see for the blanket licenses that a lot of these libraries will charge their clients, okay? And then, of course, they're always up for renegotiation or renewals every time the contract comes to an end, okay? And what can they range from? Well, they can be on the low side, just $1,000, but they could go really high up depending on who the client is and how much music they're going to need and the quality of the music they need. It can be 50 grand. It could be even more than that. For bigger clients, it could be 100 plus, $100,000 plus. So they can be very, very lucrative blanket fees, and it depends on basically what they're using the music for. And it's always negotiated from the library to the client of what they need. I have a friend actually who's in a Universal Music Group down in Mexico, and this is basically his job, is finding these clients to sign these annual blanket license deals. And his job is to basically find out what are your needs, what kind of music do you need, how readily do you need to be able to download this stuff, how many placements are you going to be getting, and they basically take that all into consideration to decide what they're going to be charging that particular client. And it's just a negotiation back and forth. There's no set terms for any of this kind of stuff, okay? And basically what clients are doing is they're paying upfront, right? They're not going to have to pay, they have to pay like today to start using music tomorrow. But what the idea for them is they're going to save more in the long run, because if they had to go back and pay individually for each song that they place, they'd probably be paying a lot more in the long run than just paying a large upfront sum to the library, to the catalog, and then getting unlimited access to basically consume as much as they needed. So basically, it's like you invest today and you save more down the road, especially if you're going to be using a lot of music, okay? Sync fees. You guys definitely have heard of those. Let's talk about what those are. It is a one-time fee paid by a library's client, again, to the library. So this is basically just a different way of charging their clients to use their music upfront, where this is all upfront stuff we're talking about here, okay? We're not talking about royalties. That's a completely separate issue. This presentation is all about just the upfront one-time fee that's earned from placing a song or a track, or instrumental, whatever it is, to a TV show, movie, commercial, video game, sometimes even radio placements, anything that can generate royalties, okay, that can actually be synced to a piece of content, okay? And it's for the use of a particular track. So you can see that is the main difference from blanket fees up here. We have all or a portion of the catalog from the library. And with sync fees, we're talking about just one track. And sometimes maybe it could be bunched into a couple of tracks that they're doing for a project. For the most part, though, they're going to have to negotiate these for one track. And a lot of times these will be clients that just need one track for one trailer that they're working on, or one track for one ad that they're going for. But it's not somebody that's constantly creating a large quality amount of content that needs a lot of music. So it's usually, this is for those kind of clients that just need one track here or there, you know, throughout the year. So they're happy and they have time to be able to negotiate for those one-time uses, okay? So this could be a music supervisor that comes to pay for these, ad agencies, like I said, TV and film producer, video games, etc. We talked about that, okay? It's usually the most lucrative form of fees, and they can range from low side. I've seen if it's just going to be like an online, campaign, like a social media campaign for a small, mid-sized company, maybe $250 or $1,000 for a smaller thing, all the way up to I've seen over $100,000 for, I've definitely seen international ad campaigns running these kind of opportunities where they're looking to pay up front $100,000 for these to place one song in an international campaign, because they're going to be making a lot more than 100,000. You might think like, who has that kind of money? Well, large international corporations obviously have that kind of money, and they're willing to pay to make sure that things are cleared and that they have absolute rights to use this music. And if it's the right song, it's the right track that really sort of marries the visuals and really gets the consumer, the audience, to really feel whatever they want them to feel about their product or service, they're more than willing to pay this kind of money. And this is not even including, again, none of the back end money. This is just the one-time fee for that one particular track. It might be yours, who knows? Now here's the thing with sync fees. They are not, and this is what I've seen in my career, they are not going to be offered to you consistently throughout the year. So in my career, I get these every so often. What's every so often? I mean, I will have some months where I get 4 of these offered to me, and they could be, you know, 5 grand, 10 grand. They could be a large number of them. Sometimes though, I'll get offered one every 3 months, sometimes one every 6 months. So it just kind of depends on what's going on with the library you're partnered with, who their clients are, how busy those clients are at any one given time. But this is not going to be the thing that's going to get you through the low points of your career. Okay, so I want to make sure that's very clear. Even though these can be the big shiny ball basically that really attracts you maybe to this side of the industry, just be aware that these, for me, at least in my income stream, this has been more just like cherries on top of the sundae, but not the sort of bulk of my income. I see these more as bonus opportunities that are great when you land them, because they do boost your income in a significant way, but it shouldn't be what you're just 100% focused on, because you just can't guarantee and count on them to come through your inbox every single week. So let's talk about what you can earn in this scenario, okay? So when you work directly with libraries, which I do recommend you guys do, don't work through middlemen, don't work through cattle call companies or people that are just, you know, you're just one out of 3 or 10,000 producers that are just putting music on some website and, oh, maybe somebody will find my tracks. Okay, work directly with smaller boutique, sometimes even larger corporate ones, but definitely have a personal relationship with music libraries, okay? So obviously you can earn those consideration fees. Usually they're going to be offering you more if you have full songs with vocals. The flip side of that, though, is if you watch TV, as I do, just to make sure I know what's going on in the world, in this sync licensing world, about 70 to 80% of what you're hearing is instrumental music. So yes, you could probably see some higher upfront consideration fees for full songs with vocals, but I don't think you're going to see as many placements as you will with instrumental music. So maybe this could be something you could add on here and there to your catalog, you know, some tracks or some albums that have full vocals on them. But I still, for myself, I like to be 100% independently operating. I don't have to be relying on anybody else to help me get an album done. And I'm an instrumental producer by and far. That's what I really do. So just be aware of that. I still think that, you know, you can still get some really hefty consideration fees in your career just with instrumental music. You can certainly see the $500 per track range if you have really high quality stuff and you're partnering with a library that does have that business model built into their system, right? You can earn sync fees. Often they will be split between you and the library. So remember, the client sends the library the sync fee. Let's say it's 10 grand. Usually the library is going to split that with you in the contract. Sometimes, I wouldn't say usually, but sometimes they're going to allow for that. And we're going to talk about in this presentation 4 different business structures, and I'll show you what those differences would be when they do that. 50-50 is usually, if they're going to offer them, is the most common, but it can be 60-40 in your favor or their favor. It can be 75-25 in their favor or your favor. There's no set amount that seems to be across the board. 50-50 obviously seems to be the most fair. So, but if you're going to go partner with a library and they're getting these $10,000, $20,000, even $50,000 sync fees, and they only give you the 75-25, you know, do you want to walk away from $5,000? Do you want to walk away from $2,500? You know, it's up to you. It's like you can have 100% of nothing. That's one option, or you can take 25% of a $50,000 sync fee. So again, it would be great if everybody played it 100% 50-50 and just split everything down the middle. But that's just not how the world works. Everybody has a different, unique business model to keep them profitable and keep them always being able to generate new placements for their producers and composers, okay? Another thing you can get is a portion of the blanket fees. So remember, those are the lump sums that a client will pay a library to use all or a portion of their catalog during a current given amount of time, okay? So some libraries are doing this. This is still rare, though. This is not something that you're going to see too much of. I've actually only seen this with 2 libraries in the 11 years that I've been doing this, and they were both new libraries. So I think maybe some new libraries might be starting to adopt this business model, but we'll see. But I just want to let you know that this is another thing that's out there. So you could be potentially earning a portion of those fees that they collected from their clients, okay? Some new libraries are starting to provide also usage reports to their composers and distributing proportion blanket fees that were earned. So what this means is essentially, and I've seen this with one of the libraries that I've partnered with, is every quarter they send me this list of all of my tracks and how many times they got placed. And basically, what they do is they divvy up how much money they took from all their clients in those blanket fees and divvy out how much is owed to me based on how many of my tracks got placed. Okay. So it's very fair actually, because they don't want to just be like, well, okay, we have 50 composers and this composer gave us 100 tracks that got placed and this composer only gave us one track that got placed. It doesn't really make sense for us to just give out the even amount of money to all of those different composers, because this composer who really gave some high quality stuff that got us a lot of placements and earned us some publishing income, and they earned their writer share, they should be getting a larger portion of those blanket fees. So I think this is great. This is actually not something that I ever saw in the first 8-9 years of my career, but I'm just now seeing it pop up very recently. So it's certainly a business model that can be coming into play here as we move forward. But remember, with all of this stuff, that your primary bread and butter are those performance royalties that are going to be earned through your PRL, BMI or ASCAP if you're in the US, or wherever you are around the world. Those royalties that you're earning every quarter, those are things that you need to really 100% be focusing on. I do believe that that is going to be your path to creating full-time income. You can strike it rich with some great sync fees, consideration fees. You can sort of have a short-term, real high boost to your income. But if you want this to be something that's going to last you for years and years and years, that's where you're going to have to really protect your writer share. As I talked about before, with all of these, you should be keeping 100% of your writer share unless you co-wrote some of the songs with another producer or something like that. But that's what's going to keep you afloat during those slow times. Like I said, you get one sync fee opportunity that comes to you once every 6 months. You can't really depend on that. And you're also going to be competing against other composers probably on the library, so you don't even guarantee that you're going to get that sync fee opportunity. So again, those are sort of the bonus opportunities of this industry. I think your writer share and your royalties is what really is going to keep you just moving forward in this business. I really do think you should just always keep that in mind, okay? So let's talk about the 4 different deal structures that you can find within the industry. I'm going to show you what these are. And I've actually done, I think, almost every single one of these. I think I really have. And I'll talk about some of those experiences I've had, okay? So the deal one you get from a library is no consideration fees. Okay, they just don't give them to you. They don't give you any blanket fees. They're not going to give you any portion of those, or sync fees. So the licensing agreement you get is we basically pay you nothing up front, okay? Nothing for your tracks to distribute them. We're not going to split any sync fees or blanket fees that we get from our clients, okay? First of all, yes, some exclusive libraries will offer this kind of a deal. You might think, like, who could get away with that kind of a thing? A lot of libraries can actually do this, but believe it or not, it can still be profitable, okay? So don't think that this is just some reason why you should completely just run away and say no to it. It can be profitable for you if you're keeping 100% of your writer share, as we talked about, and the library has a track record of high quantity or quality placements, okay? Like I said, it's those royalties that are really going to earn for you year after year, quarter after quarter, okay? So you might not be getting much of anything, maybe zero, with this kind of a deal structure up front, but you need to be focusing on, is this kind of a library that will be getting me placements, both quantity or quality, that will be earning me those royalties down the road? Because if you're in this for a paycheck tomorrow, this is not going to be a deal that's attractive for you. If you're in this for 5 or 10 or 20 or 30 years of income that can be passive for you, that you can constantly be earning new royalties on old music you've done, this can still be a very lucrative opportunity for you. So I just want to make sure that it's all about your perspective and your expectations. If you expect to get rich in 2 weeks, not going to happen. If you're looking to build a long-term career, this is something that can absolutely be, if it's the right one, if you've done your research, this can absolutely still be a very profitable deal for you, okay? And I've partnered with libraries with this structure where I got nothing, absolutely nothing up front, and I've made thousands, actually I should have changed that, it's tens of thousands in back-end royalties, but they were the right library, and I was supplying structured, specific, tailored music for their clients' needs because I created that relationship directly with them, okay? So that's how that kind of thing worked. So yeah, it's not great to be sending music and then not getting anything in exchange for it. But you know what's better is waking up and getting royalty checks and getting thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars lining up in your bank account for stuff that you did last year, and then constantly building that and seeing that snowball forward into the future of your career. Okay. So without consideration fees offered, you may be able to ask for a reversion clause. Here's a little bit of clout that you might have in the situation to get your tracks back out in 3 years. If you don't know what the reversion clause is, it's simply a clause that you could insert into a licensing agreement that says, if any one particular track of mine does not get any placements, like no TV, film, trailer, video game, like just no play for, usually it's 2 to 3 years, but 3 years, 36 months is the standard that I've seen out there. If a set of tracks or one track of mine does not get any placements, I would like to have the option to send you a 30-day notice to take that track or that group of tracks back out of your catalog and go somewhere else. If they don't immediately offer this to you in their licensing agreement, this is where you might have a little bit of leverage, because they're not giving you any consideration fee. They're not giving you any of that value up front to exclusively distribute your music, which they should be probably doing. They're probably going to be exclusively distributing your stuff. So without them paying any upfront money, this can be something that you can say, well, without a consideration fee, this would make me more comfortable to know that if any particular tracks of mine don't get out and don't get placed and don't get any play for me, and I don't see any of them show up on my royalties in the next 3 years, I would like to basically be able to take those back out of your catalog and find another home for them, okay? And so you'll find some libraries will have no problem with this. They'll be like, yeah, absolutely, that's fair. We can absolutely play ball with that. Others might not. Others might say, nope, we need a perpetual agreement and you have to sign them over forever. So again, that's where you have to really weigh how much do you want to invest and time and energy into this kind of a library where you don't know how well your tracks are really going to do for them. That's why I've always said the best thing you can do, you can't control everything in this industry, and obviously not on planet Earth. But what the best thing you can do is you can do your research. You can really understand who you're partnering with and whether or not your tracks are really relevant for their clients. Because if you're just submitting whatever you feel is cool, whatever music you're into, and it is a library, but there's really no consideration for how valuable and how licensable your tracks are going to be for the opportunities that they have in front of them, then you're stacking the odds of success against yourself, and you might be literally twiddling your thumbs for years without any placement. So you got to be smarter about this kind of stuff, and you really got to see how you can really serve their needs, okay? Second structure, they only give you consideration fees, okay? So no sync fees, no blanket fees, but they will give you that consideration fee up front. Obviously, a deal like this can put some pocket money in your bank account very quickly. So if you are looking for, an upfront paycheck in a couple of weeks, you can obviously get that kind of money fairly quickly with this kind of a deal. I've done this one too. I made a little upfront money that was just nice. And I remember the first time I partnered with my first library, I got a check for $500 for my first album, and I felt like a king. Like I finally got paid for my music. It was such a great feeling. And I ended up getting a lot in back-end royalties as well. So win-win. You can definitely get a little bit of money coming up front, and then you start to build up. You still build your catalog though, right? That's the common theme throughout all of this. So you can still get back-end royalties much further down the line. And then the library will collect those sync fees or sometimes it's both, or sometimes it's either or, blanket licenses from their clients. But instead of splitting those with you, right, because they're only giving you consideration fees, no sync fees are coming your way, no blanket fees are coming your way, or even proportion of them. So what they're going to do is they're going to use those sync fees or blanket licenses to just keep themselves afloat. Pay themselves, pay their staff, pay rent on their office space, website hosting, their library hosting, metadata, all the stuff they have to do, flying around the country, whining and dining their clients. So that's how they're basically staying mostly in business. And then they also have their publishing back-end royalties that they're going to be also using as well. But for the upfront stuff, might be one of those things that keeps them profitable and keeps them in business. And I know a lot of people are like, well, they should be splitting everything. Again, if you think life should be fair, you need to go back to first grade when you learned that, some kids got extra, 2 extra ice creams at the lunch line and you only got one. It's not everything is about what's fair or not. What really matters in this business and in life is staying profitable and staying in business. Because if libraries go out of business because they're just shelling their money all over the place, there's no opportunities for any of us, okay? So you just have to always be empathetic to their needs as well. Unless you have the ability to go directly to Steven Spielberg to get your tracks placed in his next blockbuster movie, we're going to need people like this, right, in our career. And these are the kind of people that can absolutely make this our full-time income, okay? And no, we don't deserve all of it because we're putting the music together. Libraries who provide a very valuable service by shopping this stuff out there and taking all that time to organize this and to do the publishing side of things absolutely deserve to be profitable, deserve to earn some money for their efforts. So it's just a sort of perspective thing that if you have an issue with this, or if this is turning you off completely to sync licensing, good. At least you know it now, and you won't waste any more time in this industry. But it's definitely something you're gonna have to be aware of. Okay. And I want to make sure that you guys are just aware of this, that you can get a couple of when I got $500 in my pocket, I was like, wow, I'm so rich, right? It's so great. Yes, you can get a little bit of money in your pocket, and that feels good. Of course, you can pay your bills, and you breathe a little bit easier because your bank account got a little bit bigger. But don't fool yourself into thinking that you're now rich, or that you've made it, or that you've got a career. That's the kind of stuff that I want to make sure you guys are aware of. It's awesome to get a little bit of money up front, but I think some producers get ahead of themselves and then they kind of just lose focus of the site of, well, I just want to keep getting that upfront money. Like that's what I'm in this for. I just want the upfront money, and they lose focus on the long-term aspects of building a legacy, a long-term stream of passive income through those performance royalties. So just be aware of that, okay? You still need to focus on building up your back-end royalties if you plan on making this a lifelong career. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm always emphasizing that so you guys don't get, you don't see these dollar bill signs in front of your face and you start losing focus of what my strategy at least has allowed me to do this full time. Okay. All right, deal structure 3. What's the next one? Consideration fees, or they split the sync fees with you. So they basically give you the option, okay? The library will give you a contract and allow you to make this choice. Do you want an upfront consideration fee for your tracks we accept, or do you want that to be 0 and then we split the sync fees? And again, that split could be 50-50, 60-40, 75-25. It can be all over the place, okay? So they're going to give you this option of which one you want to go down. This is a really common question I get, and I'm going to talk about the considerations for this. I've been offered this once by a library that I actually still submit to this day. And what I decided to do is I opted to just split the sync fees. So I said, and they were offering very nice upfront consideration fees. It was very, very generous. But I said, you know what? Because I'd done my research on this company and I know that they get massive, not only national ad campaigns, but also international ad campaigns. And it did pay off for me because one of the first opportunities we got was a national Outback Steakhouse opportunity. So that was one of those situations where I actually got the placement, and it was a really nice, hefty sync fee that they basically split with me. So if I had done the consideration fees option, I wouldn't have made nearly as much money as I did with that one-time sync fee. Okay, so this is one of those things where you need to be weighing this out. Okay, yes, getting some upfront money, consideration fees is great because it's right now. But then you also think about, okay, but what if there's a $100,000 sync fee opportunity in the future and I just forfeited 50 grand, like we were splitting it 50-50. I just gave up 50 grand because I wanted $1,000 right now. So this is the kind of consideration you need to have, all right? Usually higher consideration fees are offered in exchange for you giving up potential future sync fees. Okay, so like I said before, my situation, usually what they're going to do is give you a pretty lucrative offer for this consideration fees, and say, like, if you take this consideration fee, which is, a lot of these can actually even pay your rent. They can actually pay your full bills. They can be that big, actually. But again, don't get too excited about it. You still need to focus on those back-end royalties. But a lot of times you'll see them larger when they're offering this kind of a trade-off, right? Because it's like, well, we're going to give you a little bit more now, but that means you take none of potentially $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 larger sync fees right down the pipeline. Okay, so which is the right answer? I can't tell you which is the right answer, but for me, I'm always thinking about what's in it for the long run. I'm in this for the long haul. I've been in this industry for 11 years. What do I need a quick paycheck for at this point, right? I've been doing this long enough and I've been getting those back-end passive royalties long enough to know that that's where the real money is in this business, where the sustainable income, I should say, is in this business. Now, you can ask, if you're not sure, like which one would be a better option, you can definitely do this. Just ask the library how many sync fees opportunities they receive, per year in a certain time period, and what the average payout of each one of those are. So many of them will be honest with you. They'll say, you know what, we get one about a month. They're about 5 to 10 grand, or, we get them about basically every week. We have all these, or right now we're just really busy. We have tons of ad opportunities that we're doing, and, they're 20 to 50,000 each, or they'll be transparent with you. They should be transparent with you to let you know what kind of income you might be looking at if you were to nail one of those sync fee opportunities. So that would be the first thing I would say for most of you guys. If you don't know which one you want to go with, ask them, okay, well, what am I missing out on, basically? I mean, what is this that you guys are basically doing with these sync fee opportunities? And I want to know, are they lucrative enough for me to forfeit the consideration fees, And remember, though, you're not guaranteed to get the sync fee placements, okay? Because you're going to be competing most likely with many other composers on that catalog. Sometimes also you're going to be competing with composers on another catalog. Sometimes a client will go to 2 different libraries to say, we're looking for this kind of song. Whoever can get us the right track gets $50,000, right? So sometimes there can be multiple libraries that are all submitting to this one opportunity. So you don't have any guarantee that you're going to be the one track that's going to be picked for it, because a lot of that stuff, you need to follow the brief and follow the instructions. But sometimes it's really just a subjective judgment on the basis of the client, decide whose track they really liked, okay? But, the other side of that is consideration fees that you get when you just submit your tracks to the library. Those are guaranteed because you submitted the tracks, right? Guaranteed in terms of if they accept them and they're appropriate for the library and they like what they're hearing, of course, right? But those are guaranteed because as long as you submit what they need, you're not competing with somebody else for those consideration fees. Those 100% go to you, right? So you see how there's a big, there's a trade-off here. There's pros and cons to both sides. You got to decide which one of those makes the most sense to you and which one really fits in your strategy for what you think is best for your career moving forward. And this is why all of this is why doing your research on the library before you submit to them is crucial. So you know what kind of placements they get, who their clients typically tend to be, what kind of music they see getting out there and getting aired. This is why if you know this kind of stuff, you know really which direction you should probably be going in terms of accepting the consideration fees or forfeiting them and just waiting for those split fee sync fee opportunities to come through. And the last deal structure here, this is a new one that I've been seeing cropping up just a couple of times, not too often, but maybe you'll be earning a portion of the blanket license fees that they collected from their clients. This can be with or without consideration fees. So sometimes libraries will offer you a consideration fee along with the blanket fees, or sometimes they just won't give you any upfront fees, but will give you a portion of the blanket fees depending on what you've earned, okay? You will earn, as I said before, you'll earn the proportional amount of blanket fees attributed to the placements that you receive. So now I'm going to give you an example of how this would work. Now, any library can weigh and evaluate the proportion of how they're going to pay out their composers completely differently. So this is not something that I would say that all libraries follow, but I'm just going to show you a quick down and dirty and very easy example of how to understand how this stuff would be split out to you, okay? So let's say a library gathers $100,000 in annual blanket licenses from their clients. Let's say they have 5 clients. Each client pays them $20,000 to use in their TV shows, movies, commercials, whatever it is they're using, okay? So the library now has $100,000 that they've gathered from their clients for 1 year for those clients to use any of their music in their productions, okay? So let's say the library receives 100 or 1,000 placements in that same year. Okay, so if you do the math, $100,000 divided by 1,000 placements, each placement is earning the library about $100. So every time one of those clients clicks download and takes one of those tracks into their piece of content, the library has earned $100. Okay. So let's say you get the report. It could be the annual report or the quarterly report, but you see throughout that year that 100 of those placements, 100 of the 1,000 placements were your tracks. So what is that? That's basically a tenth of the placements that were out there. That's pretty good, actually, depending on how many composers are on the catalog. So then if you do that math to say, all right, well, then what would be $100 times 100 placements? Well, you're at $10,000, okay? So not bad. And so that's basically them saying you are responsible for 10% of the income that we gathered from our clients. So your share could be possibly $10,000. Now, what's probably more likely, though, is a library will probably split those with you. 50-50 is probably going to be the most common. That's the one, at least, that I've seen so far. And so then your share would actually only be $5,000 for the year. But still, $5,000 is better than nothing, and that's what I've been seeing most libraries do, is they don't split any of these blanket fees. These are just things that they keep for themselves to keep themselves in business. So, seeing some libraries actually go down this path where they're starting to open this up and share those with you as a composer, I think is really awesome. It's really great, and it's also very revealing. It's great to get this report from a library that says these 100 tracks actually got placed, so you can actually now sort of understand, ooh, okay, these are the songs that are actually getting the most traction with their clients. I need to go in this direction and maybe not so much of a different direction where you don't get so many placements with that company. So it's also very revealing, and it shows you what you're doing right or maybe not so right as you work with this particular company, okay? And of course, as I said before, the library may calculate the placement value on other factors. So, just because you have 100 placements, that doesn't mean that you have just as valuable placements as somebody who got 100 trailer placements or 100 theme show placements, right? If you had 100 background placements on a reality show that airs at 4 a.m, right? They're going to have maybe different ways that they weigh that out. So it's not necessarily just going to be this clean cut, just numbers, okay? But I just wanted to give you this as an example so you can understand one possible way that they could be starting to think about divvying out these blanket fees to you as a composer, okay? So I hope that helped. I hope that cleared up some confusion, but no matter what you earn in these upfront sync fees, whether it's going to be consideration, blanket fees, or sync fees, no matter what you earn or don't earn at all, protect your writer share. Okay, your writer share is what's going to get you through this industry. It's going to keep you relevant. And when you don't have any opportunities coming through your email inbox, it's those back-end performance royalties that you earn from the PROs that are going to keep you relevant and afloat in this business. Okay. Make sure you do understand that. Make sure you have a bigger picture here. This is a long-term play. Remember, what we're in here for is a long-term career. We're not trying to strike it rich and win the lotto next week, okay? We're trying to create a 10, 20, 30, 50-year-long future career for ourselves. And that requires you have to have some patience. You have to sort of think about this in terms of what you're going to be doing in a year, 2 years, 5 years from now. Okay. So with all these deal structures, you absolutely can be doing those kind of things. But if you're giving up your writer share, if you're not earning those back end royalties, you're not protecting your registrations, you're not making sure that the tracks you submit to a library do get registered to you, right? You're kind of slipping on those sort of finer details. That's where you're going to come into some big problems down the road. So definitely protect your writer share and protect your protections in this business. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this and found it very useful.